This is Aimee Mann, and Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
Hi there, and welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. And because I'm here and you're here, you're kind of alone with Jay Kogan. So I apologize already for forcing you into an uncomfortable situation, which you probably didn't want. But here we are. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, I am Jay Kogan, a comedy writer, a philosopher, and now a podcast host of the greatest podcast in the history of time. The email address, if you want to send a comment or a question to me, is dbawjaykogen@gmail.com. That's Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. You got it. You understood the initials stood for words, right? You got that? Anyway, today we're going to be talking about something that's been on my mind. The show is ultimately about me talking to interesting people about my own problems. And this problem I'm having today is the industry that I've worked in for many, many years, television comedy, is changing. It's coalescing. It's kind of condensing and maybe even collapsing. And what happens when the industry you're in starts to collapse and condense? How do you then proceed? Do you work on your own? Do you find another gig? What do you do? Well, we'll be talking with Aimee Mann, who has been a veteran of pop music and music in general, who has carved a career, a very fabulous career out for herself by taking the reins of her own career. And so she'll tell me what I should do and how I should do it. And I'm going to listen because she knows what she's talking about. I've been a huge fan of hers. Her music has seen me through some really rough times, and we'll talk about that too. And she's got some great music out now. You've got to listen to Queens of the Summer Hotel, which is the last album she made. Brilliant album. I listen to it all the time, as well as all the other. I'm Was Stupid, whatever, the Magnolia soundtrack. They're all great. And so check out Aimee Mann. She'll be with us in a moment.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
Here with my guest, Aimee Mann. I'm so lucky that she said, I have no idea why she said yes, that you would do this. It's thrilling to me that you're here. Aimee Mann, one of the all-time great singer-songwriters. I've been a fan of hers for even longer than I've known her. On MTV Til Tuesday, but then you became a solo artist and you did all these albums. And one of your albums, welcome Aimee, first of all.
Thank you.
One of your albums, I'm Was Stupid, got me through a terrible TV show. Like the whole that's
very interesting. I would like to hear more.
I was on a show called The Single Guy, which was a show that was made with a lot of lovely people, but it just wasn't a good show.
It just didn't happen.
And it was on the greatest time slot. It was between Seinfeld and Friends, or Friends and Seinfeld.
God.
He was a Jonathan Silverman, who's a very lovely guy, and it had an ensemble show, and Ernest Borgnine was in it. There's a lot of big stars and a lot of things, and it just didn't happen.
Can you sum up, I know we're already off topic. Can you sum up in one sentence what you think went wrong with it? I mean, sometimes it's just the recipe.
No, I would say
doesn't click.
Here, what went wrong with it is what went right with it. It was created by a guy named Brad Hall, who's a very smart, interesting guy. He's married to Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and he's his own great writer in his own right. He came from a single camera show called Brooklyn Bridge, which wasn't about laughs, it was about life. And he wanted to create that on NBC and somehow in a multi-camera format. And so it was a mismatch, I think, of dream versus medium. And so, he didn't want to hit the hard jokes. He didn't want to go for the kind of jokes that Friends or Seinfeld were going for, because he wanted it to feel more like a slice of life.
Yes, but as soon as you have three cameras, your brain expects a certain kind of, you want to joke. And
a live studio audience.
Every couple of seconds.
They're going to either laugh or not laugh. So it was my job.
That's painful.
NBC hired me, and I guess Brad hired me to work on the show. And NBC kept calling me saying, can you just make sure that there's more jokes in the show, more hard jokes in the show? And so Brad liked to write the show almost by himself. Do drafts, certainly all by himself. And then I would wait till he was done with his draft, till about 2 or 3 in the morning. And then I would go in and do what we call the proofing. And anytime in the proofing, I could sort of shove in a joke, or then I knew I was sort of at least doing the job that NBC had asked me to do.
So proofing.
Proofing.
Is proofing the same as punch up?
No. Proofing is really looking at the script and saying, are the words in the right order?
Okay.
Are there grammatical mistakes? Are there wording mistakes? Do we have the wrong character saying the wrong line? Really just proofing.
So you're punching and proofing.
But at the time, you're also allowed to sort of say, what if he said this instead of this? And what if he said, so I could get maybe 3 or 4 more jokes in the thing if I waited to proof. But it was a long time waiting.
Yeah.
So I would play music in my office and often blast the music in my office. And one of the main ones I remember, and actually I met a friend of mine recently who said, I remember you blasting that Aimee Mann album all night. So it's like,
really
it
funny.
was you who got me through.
That's really, really funny. Well, glad to be of service.
It was great. It was great.
Really glad to be of service.
And
it's sad when an artistic project does not gel.
Yeah.
When you can tell there's great ideas and great people involved.
Right.
And it's for a mismatch for whatever reason.
Yeah. I mean,
it's hard to work on such a thing.
It's sad, but it's also it's more frustrating to me than sad because I felt like we were almost there.
Yeah.
We could have done it.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's a thing that you did that you're willing to talk about that was almost there?
That's the problem.
Okay.
The willing
we'll
to
talk about it in generalities though.
Yeah, just a project that requires a lot of collaboration with people who didn't want to collaborate.
Right.
With people who maybe weren't good collaborators, or they could collaborate with each other but did not really want me involved, or didn't
if they didn't want you involved, why were you there?
Well, because it was organized by other people. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm such a huge fan of yours, and I don't even really understand fully your process because a lot of the things, your songs sound so personal and so I assume they must have been written in your living room because they sound, especially the last album,
right.
It's just, they sounded almost like you just read a novel.
Yeah.
You just read a book and then you picked up the guitar and started writing or something. So you seemed inspired.
Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's like that.
And so I don't know when it's a group effort, it seems like, well, that's a different vibe or different thing. Like, how do you decide when you're going to bring extra people in?
Yeah, well, See, I don't want to badmouth the thing because it's sort of ongoing. But it was a musical where a bunch of different people have to collaborate and they sort of have different jobs. So if I'm collaborating and writing with somebody, I'm pretty good at picking people that already I know will be good collaborators.
Right.
And even if they don't, I don't know. That's almost like being a good collaborator is almost more important than the skill set sometimes.
Do you pick the collaborator based on your personal interaction with them or because you're a fan of what they do?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
but more the personal thing.
Yeah.
Like I think for me it would be, I've had this conversation with Conan O'Brien. Like it would be more interesting to try to write a song with Conan, who has never written a song, just based on his personality and his interest in music and what I know about him.
Right. But I heard a podcast once where you said you and Conan were going to go write a song together.
I think that's still on the books.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's not penciled in yet, but I definitely want to do that.
If you haven't written a song by now, you're never going to write a song together. I don't know. It's been a while.
It depends. I think the biggest impediment to that is that you do have to you can't be comically on. Right. Because it's going to get in the way of having an actual
Conan will
feeling.
not be a good song.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen him not.
I'm a jokey guy, but I am.
You can turn off.
I turn off. I pale in comparison to our friend Conan, who will be a guest on this show in not too long a time. But that's will be fascinating. But he does love music. In his heart,
he loves it.
He loves music. I mean, everybody says they love music. Everybody says, "Oh, you like me? I love it." He loves it. He knows a lot about it. He cares about it. It runs very deep in him.
Yeah, he wants to be inside it and play it and be a musician. And I think that counts for a lot. Like that, you do have to have that feeling about music in order to play it. You want to crawl inside it.
Yeah, or I mean, you want to have something to say, and then if you can speak the language of words and melody, then that's the thing. Like the language of melody is almost easier than the language of words. I mean, I don't know if that's true for you.
It is for me, but I do think that's a thing that you kind of either have or you don't. And I hate to put it that way, but I do think that the other parts of it I have to work at. I don't have like a really extensive harmonic knowledge, so I have to be very deliberate about trying different chord progressions or, borrowing chord progressions from other songs and trying a different melody on top of it just as an exercise or, that kind of thing.
Didn't you go to the Berklee School of Music?
I did, but I was the least musically educated person there.
The Circle of Fifths, they didn't go over the...
Barely heard about the Circle of Fifths. No, I started as a total beginner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and because they have like a summer session you could just do and you don't have to, there's no audition. You just attend. And I worked really, really hard. So my teachers, kind of gave the go-ahead for me to go to the regular
good.
semester.
That's nice.
Yeah.
They everybody I know, or most people I know who went to Berklee, never graduated.
Most people, yeah.
They all just broke out and just started playing music. At a certain point, they said, "Well, I've got it," and then started doing their thing.
Yeah.
Is that what happened to you? Did you finish?
I was going to study recording or engineering, but they had just started their engineering department, and even though I really didn't know anything about engineering, which is why I wanted to take the class, I could tell that the guy was not a good teacher because I would ask him questions and he did not know how to explain.
He didn't know what a speaker was.
Or just he didn't know, I asked him what he mentioned an oscilloscope and calibrating the recording, the tape deck. And I asked him what an oscilloscope was, and he was like, well, it's like a TV without the inside. So I'm like, I know that is not the right answer.
That can't be the answer, no.
That is not an answer that I got any kind of knowledge out of. So I felt like, kind of an expensive school, not nearly as expensive it is now, but, I didn't want to waste my father's money. And I also felt like...
There's where you and I diverge.
Yeah.
I was happy to waste my father's money.
Just keep wasting it?
And
keep
absolutely. I would do it now if he let me.
Yeah.
If he would just support me, I would be wasting his money right now.
Dad was like a real depression kid, and so he just always had this angst about money. So I was very cognizant about that. And you were like, I don't care.
Exactly.
Write me a check.
Right. It's not the depression, old man.
Yeah.
It's the swinging 80s, man.
Times have changed.
Yeah, exactly. Not a problem. Well, that's good. Good for your dad. All right. Well, let's see. So you were a nice daughter. You cared about your father's anxieties.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Good for you.
And then I had never played in a band, and I felt like that was also part of the my education that I needed. So I had started this, kind of art rock noise punky band, and we played shows around Boston. The Boston music scene was incredibly huge.
Right.
I could make a living playing in this unlistenable band, but we played 4 times a week. And, I could kind of pay my rent through it.
Well, it leads me to my question. This is the question. I have friends and very interesting people on, people I think are interesting, to answer questions about my life because I'm that self-centered.
Fantastic.
And one of the questions I have about my life, which blends into what you were saying, is I work in a industry, mostly television comedy industry, that is morphing and changing all the time. Broadcast television certainly seems like it's collapsing, while cable seems like it's collapsing, while streaming seems like it is condensing. And so less and less options available to sort of make the sort of big time TV that was once made, at least in the form that I used to make it. And movies, also comedy movies, are fewer and far between than they were back then. So I don't know. It seems like the industry is changing around me, and you have experienced something similar because you started, as you say, you started out in this crazy rock band, and you can make a living just going around Boston, and then you got to a big time rock band that had a big hit record. Yeah. And that was great. And then you became a solo artist under a label.
Yeah.
And saw what that was, which isn't all it's cracked up to be, I would think. And then decided, as the music industry started drying up in terms of record sales, and here we are now, like artists can't get paid from Spotify and can't get paid. You have created your own way to survive. Mm-hmm. So you're famous for it. So how did you take the reins, and when did you decide, like, I don't need you, record label, I don't need this, and this is how I'm going to learn how to do that part of the business?
Well, you know, I mean, things have really changed since I kind of first split. So what happened, I was on a record label called Imago, and then Imago was going to go out of business, so it was going to sell all its contracts to, some other label. And so I was sold to Geffen, and then Geffen was getting absorbed by Interscope, so like I put one record out, then Geffen was getting absorbed by Interscope, and I think like 5 different labels were getting absorbed by Interscope. Right. And I was told if I wanted to leave, I could. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Oh. Because I mean, that was not was that not the label for me? So I don't, usually they just won't let you go. They'll like just sit on your record until you're totally forgotten.
But I mean, like, isn't everything now owned by Universal Music Group? Like, isn't all music is owned by one giant company?
Probably. I'm out of it, so I don't know.
Right. So like now, but you were in control of your music.
Yeah, and this was like late, I don't know, 1996 or 7 or something. And I was like, I don't care if I have to sell this thing out of the back of the van. Right. I already had finished the record. I did not want to deal with record companies telling me to, we don't hear a single, like go back in the studio and dick around some more, so then we could continue to say we don't.
And was that your experience of the?
Absolutely, yeah. And it was always on records that were already done. So I would have a finished record. They would go, "Oh, this is fantastic. Well, here's a record deal." And then they would say, "Oh, we don't hear a single." Like, well, couldn't you have not heard a single?
Right. Well, that's like selling a script, like a spec script, and say, "We love it." Yeah. Okay, now here are our notes.
Exactly. Like, yeah, it's super annoying, and it's also not like they give. They advance you money to make the record, but they don't give you money. I mean, I didn't get one of those $1 million deals. So
what do they give you?
They give you enough money to make a record.
But you've already made the record.
Right. So we probably paid off the debt to the studio or whatever. I mean, I don't end up with money in my pocket, but it's always like the promise that's dangled is, well, maybe you'll become rich and famous one day. And you're like, I don't, or even just like famous. I feel like that, like they feel like that's enough to
dangling
keep you,
famous is enough.
Yeah. To keep you like going out on the road, which is, a tried and true way to promote your record, and or doing videos or whatever. And talking to my manager, he's like, it's not rocket science. Like, you hire a guy to promote the record on radio, you make a video, and then you go on the road. Right. Like, those are the 3 things. That's the 3 things any label has. They don't, I mean, I'm sure now with social media, it's much more complex. And there's a lot of other ways to promote.
Well, I think it's kind of the same. I mean, you're trying to drum up an audience through social media, and you're trying to. It's not. It's
just slightly.
The radio stations are less important than the social media aspect, but still playing music and getting followers, right? It's still
it's still not rocket science. Yeah. But now it doesn't result in anybody buying your record, but I kind of got out at this optimum place to, like, we had, for then was considered pretty modestly good record sales, but I actually got all the money. Right. So, for a couple of or 3 records there, I actually made some money. So
that's great.
And I think that, for me having a career now, it's because I've been around a long time. I've done a lot of touring. Right. And I have a reputation. So I'm somebody, you might think of when you want to put a song in a movie or that kind of thing. So, if somebody's starting out now, I have no idea what they would do.
fans will come to see you because they've been fans.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what people would do. My son is trying to be a musician, and he's not actively trying all that hard. He's in college. So when he graduates from college, then he'll be actively trying, and he'll be flailing to try and figure out how to make money while doing this. And we'll see what comes of any of that stuff.
Yeah. I do think that there is always a certain kind of magic in seeing somebody perform live.
Right.
And it just isn't the same. It's almost like now that you can make a record that sounds professional on your laptop in your living room, everybody's record sounds exactly the same. So that seeing music live is even more a weirdly magical experience. Like,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I still, I don't see a lot of live music, but every now and then there'll be something that's like, I don't know, like when you see somebody in front of you, like, make this amazing sound with their mouth. Right. It really is incredible.
It is incredible. Yeah. I'm persuaded by people, but I'm also persuaded by hearing the music, recordings of music. Yeah. But the emotional weight of words and melody sung by somebody who sounds like they mean it or feeling it is
if something happens powerful. In the room, something happens in the room, there's a compact between everybody in the room and the person on stage. And when you are all surfing that same wave, a metaphor I hate, but I used it, there is really something...
Get out. You just used that metaphor. Get out.
When you're proofing it later, you can punch it up.
Sure, that's right. Okay.
It is kind of a weirdly magical thing where everybody is on the same page, which never happens.
Yeah. I'm not, that is special. That is special. That sort of moment in an audience. Well, it's like seeing a movie, although the performance of the movie is, you're having still a compact with an audience.
Yeah, sure.
And you're still, it matters if people are laughing together or not. I mean, that's a thing, or in a comedy, or frightened, also in a comedy. Yeah. So I only see comedies. That's my only frame of reference.
Yeah, I have one rule.
One rule.
Only comedies.
All movies are for me. Schindler's List was a comedy, but it was not a successful comedy. That's just how I do.
For you, it was not too soon.
Not as funny as I'd like it to be.
Not as many jokes.
Not as many jokes as it. Yeah. There are some funny things. Come on, let's be honest. A few funny things in Schindler's List, but not as funny as I liked it. So in my industry, if I'm still relevant or going to be relevant, or I don't know what I'm going to do, but if I still want to be creative, like, should I be making my own little thing? I can make a TV show. I can make a TV show on an iPhone and edit it. I can sell it. Like, I could do stuff. I mean,
it's money. It's money. Like, one can make a record for $50,000, assuming you actually want to pay musicians, or $100,000, or, like, it's not a gigantic amount of money, but how do you finance
Did it cost a lot of money to make your last album, Queens of the Summer Hotel?
Under $100,000, honestly, can't remember. Okay. We had a string section and everything. Right. So, we kind of tried to do but we work fast.
Right. And if you release an album, you have a fan base who's going to be interested in it, is going to download it enough. Some people are going to buy it. Some people are going to so there's, you're not just throwing that money into the air, I assume. I mean, I do not look at numbers at all. Okay. Because that must be great for your accounting people. I just, like, why? Right. If I'm told, like, well, you sold 1,000 records, you spent $75,000 and you sold 1,000 records. That would be a big bummer for me. Yeah, that would be a bummer. And I don't need to know that. No. I mean, I put out records because I have an idea for a record and I want to make one, and you want to stay in the game, and it's what I do. I think it propels everything else, and then I'll play some shows, and there's not that much money in that, but there's some. Right. And you just have to have faith that, like, you'll cobble together a living. Right. So does the year just happen, or do you plan it out like, oh, I'm going to try to do a tour here, now that COVID is over, or do you, like, does it just you wait for a call like, hey, there's a great, concert happening here that they want you, and this thing, like,
that like in February we got offered to do to support a couple of Jason Isbell shows, and he's so great, and I love that billing just personally, and so then the booking agent builds some shows around there, like 2 or 3 weeks, like not a ton,
right?
And I've just finished a 3-week tour, so it's been harder because everybody post-COVID made a rush to, everybody's on the road. So it's hard to get the right venues to route your tour so that it's doable.
Right.
It's actually very hard to get buses.
Really?
Everything is 3 times as expensive. When Taylor Swift is out, all the good buses are gone.
She's paying them big bucks. I understand why they want to work for Taylor.
No, I know.
You're going to get $100,000 bonus check.
Jesus Christ. Wow. I'll drive your bus.
Exactly. That's pretty great.
Let me drive your bus. That will be my...
But I mean, let's just talk about Taylor Swift for a second. How smart is she? I just think that she's smart in that she gave the bonuses. She's smart in that it leaks to everyone. Like, it's smart. And she's like, I think she's like, whatever she's doing, it seems like she's doing it right.
There's something that's very nice about realizing you have so much money that you can afford to be extremely generous. That's very nice. Yeah. It's very nice. Like, and I'm telling you, that's a fucking hard job.
Yeah.
Being a super famous person is a hard
tell me about it.
Job.
Tell me about it. I have to walk through the streets every day.
And fending off the paparazzi.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is it is a hard job. It's a hard job. Mentally, I don't know what kind of mindset or person can handle it, but she seems to be like wildly equipped for it.
Seems like she was training for it since birth.
Absolutely. It's really hard, and it's like it's not for me. Not for me. That level of fame is not for me.
Well, it is absolutely for me. I just can't become famous.
Yeah, like you're trying so hard.
Ready to become that figure, that sort of Tom Cruise like can't go anywhere guy.
Ready to be at dinner in a public place and have somebody sit at your table and
molested
ask you
by fans. Like, I know that stuff. I'm ready. I'm
ready to have my garbage gone through.
All of it. Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. I actually think that there's a mixed bag to that. Like I've been with pretty major celebrities who can walk through a mall and handle it and be fine, and other people who sort of can't handle it and actually make more of a deal about it, such that they attract more attention to themselves in ways that seem untoward.
It's really hard. I don't. Yeah. It's absolutely not for me. I don't have the skill set to.
Who's the most famous person that you saw try to handle it? Who's your when you think of that?
I mean, Sean Penn is my brother-in-law, mm-hmm. so I've been around some famous people. I don't think I've seen famous people in the wild getting swarmed.
Right.
Because I think they know how to, surround themselves with...
Does Sean still get that?
I'm sure he does. Yeah. I mean, but, I don't, I see him at his house, so,
Right.
I think they have ways to handle it. Go in the back door, have their bodyguards come in a plain brown wrapper. I don't know. I don't know.
I was like the baseball cap and the beard planes, or whatever, you can dress yourself down version of that celebrity hiding.
Yeah, I'm telling you, not for anything would I opt for that.
Well, that's too bad, because I have behind this curtain the opportunity for you to come
100,000 people.
100,000 people who were willing to pay you $100,000. So just untold sums of money. Yeah. But okay, you said no.
All right, no, you already said no. Too late.
Sorry, gone. It's interesting. Fame is another aspect of it. I think some people go into it to be famous. Yeah. Like you're saying, that's the dangling the carrot.
Well, that really helps.
People don't.
Because it's you are going to need that fuel.
Yeah.
If you are a narcissist who is a bottomless pit of need and cannot stand it if there's one person in the room who does not love you, and you have to go over to that person and do a song and dance for them, then this is the job for you.
Right.
Yeah, because it needs that sort of fuel. Because it's weirdly exhausting. You know, I mean, like when I was in Til Tuesday for a few years, that we had a pretty high level of fame because we were very visible on MTV. And I just found it was like, it's exactly the same feeling as being stalked.
Right.
Except you have to be nice to your stalker and you don't know if they're dangerous or not.
Right.
Like if somebody follows you to your house and tries to look in your window, that doesn't feel great.
No.
And saying like, oh, they're just a fan is like, it still doesn't feel great. Like I still feel stalked and hounded. So I don't know.
What happens to those who have sought that level of fame and then they cool off and then, you know.
I have so much to say on this topic. I think that, one of the things that happens to you is that nobody ever says no to you. Mm-hmm. So you don't have a feeling of you start to lose your feeling of what's appropriate if you ever had it. And your friends are often on the payroll.
Right.
But like, I mean, even for me, my musician, the musicians I play with, like, they're great friends. That like, I have to remind myself, like, yes, you were also paying them.
Right.
So you can't act as if it's like they're just your friends.
Right. Well, I mean, you just have to take what they say with a grain of salt. And if you're a showrunner, which happens to me sometimes, and everybody's really nice to me and saying, great joke, boss. Yeah. And I think, I'm glad they like that joke. Fantastic.
I'm funny and
I'm
people
so
like
funny.
me.
And then I realize, okay, they're not, they have an interest in making those compliments.
And it's not like they're a bunch of toadies, but like it adds a little something. Like if, like, Jay, can I get you a coffee? Like that, like, oh my God, everybody's so nice. Like it is a little bit, you have to just factor it in. Right. That not everybody.
I don't dismiss everybody.
Not everybody is as nice. Not everybody would be like when you go to the restaurant, like usher you immediately to a table. They go like, oh, so glad to see you. Welcome back to our restaurant. Right. That is, and it's not always visible to you. So but
you can't dismiss, like you said, you can't dismiss those nice people anyway. Like, I mean, maybe they're just nice. So you just have to assume and take it with a grain of salt.
It's fun to be nice to a famous person too.
I guess it is.
It is just, it just adds a thing. Like famous people, everybody loves them.
My instinct is
the world is a nicer place.
My instinct is to be mean to famous people. That's
really?
My instinct. It's just like, Steven Spielberg came to the Tracy Ullman show when I was from my first show, and the most famous director around. Mm-hmm. And I tried to convince everyone to call him Stinky, that his nickname was Stinky.
Love it.
That he preferred to be called Stinky. Yeah. And some people started calling him Stinky over there, and he didn't say anything. And I got such a kick out of it. Yeah. That you can hassle a little bit the most famous director in Hollywood. Yeah. And he took it so well. I mean, it made me love him even more. Like he didn't bark, he didn't bite about it.
Stinky is such a dumb, that is so dumb. It's almost hard to take offense.
It's completely dumb. Yeah. But God bless him for doing that. But yeah, I like to tweak. Sometimes it's my instinct to tweak the most powerful people in the room. Yeah. And hence I'm alone. Don't be alone with Jake Hogan. You don't.
So you're the one person the famous person. You're the fly in the ointment. There's a lot of ointment, and you're the one fly.
I guess so. I also like talented, like if I'm sitting with whoever, Mike Meyer, whoever it is, like, I'm happy to be around them and they're funny and all that kind of stuff. But I'm also just don't want to be seen as the toady, so I go the other way. Yeah. No.
Anti-toady.
Maybe it's more proof that I am a toady than I'm an anti-toady.
So I want to get back to your essential question about the idea of making
your own thing.
Your own thing. And I'm curious as to how you would do it. Like, I mean, assuming you have a big chunk of money in the bank and you could, you could
don't have to assume that, Aimee. I mean, come on. I'm made of money.
What do you do? You go hire actors in a studio.
You'd hire people, and you could literally make it as guerrilla as you wanted to, depending upon the thing that you're making. Yeah. You would write something that would be well suited for something that'd be shot in a guerrilla style. And then you'd film it, you'd edit it, on your computer, you'd film it on phones or cheap cameras, you'd edit it and put it out there, and then you'd make it and then try to sell that. Try to sell that to an exhibitor or not, put it online and try to
so then you're pitching to a production company.
Either that, or then there are people, Louis C.K. before he was, ran into trouble, was making his own shows and just putting them online. But he had the brand name of Louis C.K. to sell that. But people do that, and they try to, figure out how that's going to work. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. But you can go right to the market if you wanted to.
I am always in favor of that. And, because people will always respond to a great idea and great writing.
The trick now for everything, for your stuff and my stuff, is people hearing about it. Like cutting through the noise.
I know.
I know. Everything that's out there, and to even your fans might not know there's a new album out. Like to get them the information. And so it's very hard, and with me, it's not like people are clamoring for the next Jake Hogan comedy, but I could get a comedy, people are clamoring for comedy, and just let them hear about the concept, and then they might buy it.
Well, it's true. There aren't, all the shows, people are like, oh, you got to watch this, you got to watch that. None of them are comedies.
Very few.
Like after Party Time, that was it.
Yeah, but there's a
which is a show I loved, and I'm like, I would love to have more of this, like just great writing and legitimately funny.
The Bear is kind of considered a comedy, even though it's not really a comedy.
Not a comedy.
Ted Lasso is considered a comedy.
That's true.
I mean, there's some very few though.
There's not
that break out, and certainly in I'm watching the Righteous Gemstones. Lately, but that's HBO, and that's that's again, comedy. The kind of comedy that like The Bear isn't like a laugh out loud kind of comedy.
I would never have said that was a comedy.
But I think it's good. I think it's a good show.
It's great.
Yeah.
It just is not, when did I laugh ever at that?
No, but it's good.
Because you have to take it seriously.
It's nominated for an Emmy in the comedy category. It's like, well, I mean,
seems crazy.
What are the parameters of a comedy?
Oh, you know why? Because because there's not that many people in that category. They're like, we're gonna wipe the floor.
There are lots of people in that category. Could be in that category. It's just it's a matter of it's under an hour usually, so it's a half hour, closer to a half hour than an hour, and so like you can say that's a half hour comedy category. It's very strange.
I don't know. You can't say close-ups of food or comedy.
It's true, but I mean, it's good. Again, it's a very good show. I'm trying to convince I'm going to watch it all again with my wife.
Show.
Because I really enjoyed it. But it's not like
the Jamie Lee Curtis episode. Holy shit!
Amazing!
Oh my god!
Amazing! All great. I mean, all great.
How great with John Mulaney and Bob Odenkirk and everybody
in the whole thing.
It was great.
And that episode could have been cut completely from the show, and you'd still be fine.
Yeah, I like that it was a standalone.
It's a standalone backstory that told you everything.
Yeah.
Really no spoilers, audience, but you should watch The Bear. And
watch The Bear.
Season 2 is particularly amazing. But if
you like a rollicking comedy,
good time restaurant comedy,
real knee slapper.
Yeah. No, it's not so funny, but it's really smart. It's really smart and good. And I'll go for smart. And I'll take smart and good.
I will take smart and good
any time of the day. So that's
what kind of comedy do you want?
I lean towards the goofier, jokier things. I mean, I'm a comedy guy from
Three Stooges.
To me, they have to be laughing.
Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody has to slip. Fall.
I mean, I don't know that anything The Bear is great, but I think I would probably lean to funnier, what I think would be funnier things and funnier jokes and people in funnier situations, which leads, unfortunately, the funnier it is, the less serious people take it. And it kind of gets a taint of, well, it's not that important.
Well, it's a real fine line I like comedy that stems out of actual more realistic characters and situations.
Right. You have to be believable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ted Lasso is believable.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it gets a little heightened and soft, but it's believable. You know, I can believe it. It's not. It doesn't become ethereal and go out into the goofiest world. Although I just heard that earlier today that you participated in a show a comedy talk show where you just were in a closet. You don't recall this? No. Matt Oswalt, some show that you did. Oh, God. It was called 4 in the morning or something like that.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I barely remember that.
He said, Amy's coming in. He said, oh, she was in one of this great show. This, I forget who was mentioning it. Stephen Weber was.
That's so funny. I don't think I even saw it. I remember I remember being over his apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that was your whole bit was you're in the closet.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. There you go.
I don't know.
That's broad.
Yeah.
That's broad and silly, but fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I saw that you did a song for MODOK a song of yours is on Patton Oswalt's cartoon. No?
What's his cartoon?
It was called MODOK or something like that.
Could be.
It was like, I mean, you didn't write it for that, but they pulled a song.
Vague memory. You know, I mean, I get like asked to do stuff and I'll do it and I immediately forget it.
Good for you. Yeah. I do the same thing. If somebody will invite me to act in a show, in the most repulsive, horrible role, I'll do it. Yeah. I don't have a question about it. I'll show up. I'll wear my own clothes.
I mostly say yes to stuff.
I just like just so much fun to perform that I'm in no matter what.
I just did a scene in a movie where they're with a monkey. So, I mean, you know, that's the pinnacle of success. When you act with a monkey, it was the monkey from Friends.
Okay.
Same monkey.
I know that monkey.
Yeah.
He's a good monkey.
He's a pretty good monkey.
Yeah, very well trained. Yeah. It's like Maurice, what was his name? His real name?
I think it's a lady monkey.
Oh, no, the Friends monkey was a boy monkey.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It may not be the exact same monkey. Maybe it's a relative of it.
We were told it was that, you know, it's probably hype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I had a monkey, I would also tell you it's the monkey from Friends. Yeah. You know, if I,
it's like Lassie. It's just like a series of collies.
Exactly. Yeah. When I introduced Lisa Kudrow around, it says, she's also the monkey from Friends. Yeah. And people believe me.
Nice.
But it's good. I'm not sure that I have the ability, the bravery, the courage to make my own, to give up the idea that they're going to pay millions of dollars to make my show versus me.
You have to do it now.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to do it.
Maybe. But I just have
If you have an idea.
Yeah.
You have an idea and you probably already have.
I have scripts. I have things I've read. You know.
Do you have scripts? You probably already have people who you
I can find people. I could do it.
You know people.
I could do it. I could do it.
You know
I don't
people.
Know. We'll
absolutely should do it.
All right.
If only for the experience of doing it all yourself and not having, studio dad.
Right. Having done it as a showrunner where I've done a lot of it myself, but not everything. I haven't been the final say necessarily of everything. That seems like an awful lot of work, let alone then also being the financier and the budgeter and all that other stuff. So it's like, it is going to be a very, a big test if I do it. So we'll see.
I'm heartily in favor.
I have question time. This is something that we do right after the
people have questions.
People have the viewer mail is one thing, but this question time is something else. So I'll skip question time. Let's play the theme for question time.
It's question time.
Okay, now we won't have any questions. Okay, these are questions that are random questions are generated by things. But it's so interesting. This conversation is so interesting.
Questions?
We don't need it.
Did you ask Chat GPT for questions?
I've pulled interesting questions from question books and things like that. It's kind of like Chat GPT, but it's like it's fine.
Yeah.
But we have listener mail.
Okay.
Now it's time for listener mail.
Okay, this Charlie Kogan wrote a bunch of themes.
Fantastic.
He sort of spent 2 minutes creating themes for all these stuff. He's like, here you go, Dad. I pay for his college education.
At least pretend that it took you a week.
Pretend it matters
you're
to you.
Slaving over a hot keyboard.
Kids. All right, so here's a question from Geraldine. It says, Dear Jay, if you made mistakes in the past and they bother you decades later, how do you deal with that? These were not illegal mistakes, but rather things like not treating somebody as well as you should have, or doing the things that were really bad in judgment. that set you back in life. I feel guilt to this day when I shouldn't because I learned from them. All the best, Geraldine.
Well, it's two categories of mistakes. The category of mistake of people you have wronged.
Mm-hmm. That's a long list for me. Gigantic.
Yeah. I mean, you should start chipping away at making amends.
Yeah.
And sort of knowing what
Eddie Van Halen. I wronged Eddie Van Halen.
Did you?
No.
It's a little too late. Yeah. I mean, you can make an actual amends,
right.
or you can make sort of a living amends and
sure.
then like vow not to do those behaviors anymore. But, you know, if it's possible to contact the person and say, you know, back when we knew each other,
right.
I treated you really poorly. I was wrong,
mm-hmm.
and I'm very sorry.
Right.
With no excuses, no like, but I was going through a bad time,
right.
or like, you were kind of an asshole too. Like none
right.
of that. Just like, I'm really sorry. I was wrong.
That's kind of the AA method.
Yeah,
you go back
absolutely.
through your life and
And, you know, I mean, you don't necessarily have to do that, but I do think that
can I lie and say
that's maturity. That's what maturity is, admit that you made a mistake. And it makes the other person feel good, I think.
It would make it easier for me to do that if I lied and said I was going through AA and say, now that I call,
my sponsor told me to.
My sponsor told me to call people and so that I have an excuse out of the blue. I can start that conversation a lot easier. But I'm trying to think of, I don't think I've spent a lot of time wronging people, but there are things that
You owe Spielberg a big amends.
Yeah, he was
really
fine.
Sorry about Mr. Stinky.
He was good. They also told me to not talk to Steve Martin when he was on the show.
No,
and I
he
talked to Steve.
He doesn't want anybody to talk to him,
but I talked to him and he was fine. He was fine.
He had to be fine.
Yeah.
He had to be fine. He doesn't. Here's why he doesn't want you to talk to him.
Yeah.
Because he's probably preoccupied.
Yeah.
It's like he's waiting to do a thing to perform, right? Is that?
I guess so. Whereas a week-long process of rehearsal and talking
right.
and things.
So he is a stressed out person,
right.
is afraid, this is what it would be for me.
Mm-hmm.
Stressed out person is afraid that his preoccupation or anxiety will cause him to not be super nice or
right.
like not know how to respond perfectly. And he doesn't want to be an asshole. So it's better to just be a blanket asshole in the beginning and say, don't talk to me.
Okay. But he didn't say, he has somebody say that for him.
Yeah, because you don't want to be the asshole who says, tell Jay to not
right.
talk to me.
All right. When I talked to him anyway, and
you just feel like, you think you're going to set a boundary, Steve Martin?
Yeah.
I, Jake Hogan, am going to trample all over that boundary.
100%.
You know why? Because I'm the one who has to take down famous people.
I'm your friend. I'm your fan. I love your work. You're an influence on me. And I get to say that. I get to tell Steve Martin that I love him.
No, you don't.
I don't.
No,
you don't. I did it anyway.
Well, you're not a little bit of an asshole for it.
Okay, so I take that. I've also had trouble telling people I'm a big fan of theirs, and that's also been equally troublesome. Elvis Costello is somebody who I've met on 10 different occasions, and each single occasion I've awkwardly said hello.
It's so hard.
And then nothing else. I've said nothing else because what I want to say, I can't say if I'm meeting him in a social situation, which I'm not super fan. I'm not going to say, "Oh, you're so good and your music meant so much to me." And then if I'm in a fan base situation where it's just after a show, all I can really say was, "Your music's great," and then walk away.
I mean, you can either be a peer or a fan. Like
right.
you do have to choose one,
right.
and it is hard.
Right. And I've chosen both separate occasions, and both were wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Elvis is the fucking greatest.
He's the greatest.
He is his level of talent and just output is terrifying.
Right. And his knowledge.
He's terrifying.
And his wit.
He's so wonderful though. I love him so much.
Me too. And I don't know him. I just know him as he's just an idol.
Yeah.
And so when you meet an idol, all you can do, the only interaction I can do is your music is wonderful and it means a lot to me.
Yeah.
I've said the same thing to you.
But the problem is like as a peer, then the conversation's over.
Yeah.
Like, because all he could say is like, "Oh, thank you so much."
Right.
And then you're like, "No, really, and then you give an example.
Exactly.
And then he's like, yeah,
I get it.
Thank you.
Right, I get it. I wrote that song. I know it. I get it. Yeah, accidents will happen. Really great song. I'm sure it meant a lot to you in high school. It meant a lot to me when I wrote it. It's great. It's like, but I listen to the new stuff too. Yeah, great. Thank you.
He's very gracious, though.
No, he is. He's very lovely. None of it's his fault. It's all my fault. And it's all my anxiety, and it's all the thing that you want to tell the person.
I know. I've had it too.
And it's really hard.
Yeah. I don't think I ever told Elvis that what a big fan I was. I just was. It was probably obvious.
Right. And continued to be. It's interesting. Well, you've always been nice to me, and sometimes I say I'm a fan. Is that because you just don't want to be an ass? Have I cornered you in Steve Martin style into a corner to said you?
No, you have not. It's because because we move on to an actual conversation.
Right. Okay.
But there is like there's like a fan at the anticipatory like, okay, now I need something from you.
Right.
And you're like, I don't know what you.
Right. I gave it.
Do you want a hug? It's like
my music. If you like my music, I gave that already. You have it. Yeah. You have the thing that I could give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to give that. But I don't know. But like it isn't. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, probably almost always I can't hug a stranger.
Right.
Like it is. That would be too weird.
Right.
But I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for.
Yeah. I maybe they're an acknowledgement. Like when sometimes it actually happens to me that somebody recognizes me or says, "Oh, The Simpsons, you were the first 5 seasons. I love that show. It meant so much to me." And I say, "I'm so glad it did, and I'm so happy that you were there, that you responded to it. And on behalf of all the people who made it, like all the other funny writers who are much funnier than me, we thank you." And like all that's
perfect.
But
so you have like a little thing.
It's easier.
You have a little bit of a prepared thing you say that is going to be gracious and nice.
But it's easy. That it doesn't happen often, and it's very easy to do. And it's sort of like, okay. And really, when somebody's saying that to me, they want to say it to Matt Groening. Like I really understand. Like I'm.
Could you pass this along?
Exactly to somebody else.
Could you give a message to what your higher up?
You're the one who's here, but the other guy there, that's the one I want to talk to. So that's, but this person's talking about their mistakes that aren't just I think they're talking about regret. They made mistakes that past bother me, and they're living with regret. I'm
fucking made of regret. I would make every choice I would do differently.
Yeah. All right.
Almost everything.
Especially coming here.
Everything I would do differently.
All right.
Everything I would do differently. I feel it can all be tweaked.
Right.
Except none of it can be tweaked because there's no time machine.
And it happened. So, but do you take...
But I think the regret about treating people, I really do think that like fucking send them a text and say like, hey, I was thinking about you the other day and just realized I used to treat you kind of badly and I'm sorry, I was wrong.
That's very nice.
It's easy.
That's lovely.
And maybe they'll go like, yeah, you were an asshole. And you're like, yep, I was. But you don't, you can just leave it there.
What I'm taking from that, and anybody who's listening, they should call me and tell me that they treated me wrong. Like I only think it's a one-way street. Somebody who's treated me wrong has to then call me up and say, Jay, I'm sorry I treated you badly.
Yeah.
Because I've treated no one badly ever in my life.
Oh boy.
That's what's great.
Boy, that is the epitaph of the guy who's just like out there like fucking right and left.
The guy who doesn't get it. Yeah. My wife tells me, Brown tells me that apparently I'm wrong about that sometimes. Yeah. So, but I get to apologize to her on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So that's easy. That's easy. This has been amazing. We're running out of time, but I have 2 more questions that I'm going to bother you with, even though
let's do it.
It's nothing. So John Lennon or Paul McCartney? Which one? Who's better?
Paul McCartney.
Okay, so
he's a fucking savant.
Right.
His language is music, and everything that happens to him is translated into music in a way that is supernatural.
We can agree that his worst melody is better than almost anybody else's.
He's just incredible on every musical level. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Right. So he's 84.
He's pretty old.
Something like that. Still in it. Still wants to work.
I love it. I know. Like, still in it.
How about that energy? Do you think that you're going to want to work when you're 84?
I love working. I mean, I don't know if that necessarily means that I'm going to, totter on stage at 84, but I love working. I love writing. I love, just having projects. There's like 3 musicals I'm working on.
Right.
I'm
musicals?
There's a animated show I'm pitching with some other people. They're
Great.
doing the pitching because I don't know what pitching is.
Right.
Based on my cartoons.
Yeah.
I'm working on a graphic memoir. I just love having projects and doing stuff, and there's just always like more things to do.
What is it about I assume musical theater?
Yeah.
That attracts you?
I like having a story as a through line to give shape and meaning to songs. And it's very exciting to see a scene that culminates in, because music is such an emotional experience. Like when the music comes in, there is a rise in emotional intensity.
I love musicals.
And that is very interesting to me when that happens. And it's so, I don't like, there's not a lot of musicals I like because I'm a fucking
What's the last
snob.
musical that you liked?
I liked Kimberly Akimbo a lot.
All right.
I thought it was a great story, and I liked the music a lot. But there's a lot of musicals that are, just that sort of watered down rock music. Ugh,
Yeah.
I can't stand.
Now, do you subscribe to the idea that a song in a musical needs to be something that couldn't be said, that needs to be sung?
Oh, interesting. I don't know, but I don't think I've thought about it because I don't think I know musicals well enough, but I think you're probably right. I think that's a good way to look at it.
So that the emotional content of the song would come off weird if it was, even with these characters, if it was necessarily spoken, or maybe take too long.
Interesting.
But suddenly the song is your pathway to tell the characters what they're feeling and what this moment is, whether it's I hate you or I love you or this is the end of things or whatever it is that can be said is said through that song. That's the, as a fan of musicals, I've always been taught that's the reason to do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That probably is the reason to do it. But I just think of it as like the peak of emotional intensity in the scene.
Right.
That it sort of culminates, like the dialogue is the runway, and then you're taking off when the song starts.
Right. And are you writing books, the book and the music, or no?
No.
Okay.
I don't really know enough about story. Story's hard.
Yeah, story's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
The hardest thing. In all of writing, story's the hardest thing. And it's the one that everybody skips over a lot of the time. Yeah. It's like, well, this happens. And then it's like, no, what happens? What happens is mainly the main thing, the hard part.
Yeah.
Jokes are easy. Story's hard.
Yeah.
Just make me sad right now. I have to think my next thing I have to do today is think of story.
Now I got to write this TV show, produce it and finance it and come up with a story.
Right. And finance it. Oh, that's the easy part. The story is hard. All right. Well, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
This is such a pleasure, and I was grateful that you'd say yes to this podcast. You're so nice.
I feel like we figured out a lot of stuff.
We haven't figured out a ton of stuff, but you know what? We've discussed a lot of stuff, and ideas are rolling around in my head about doing things more independently, maybe.
Yeah, and a path to fame, which probably, I don't know. I think because you're not an actor.
No, I'm not an actor.
I think you probably, I don't know, like more infamy might be an
assassination attempt is my only route.
If there's a murder that you've been considering, now would be the perfect time to execute it. When Conan
O'Brien became the host of the Late Show or whatever it was, the thing he took over for Letterman, out of nowhere, out of nothing.
Yeah.
He became the most famous person I ever knew who wasn't an assassin, who said who wasn't immediately like I was friendly with Daniel Pearl, the journalist who got murdered.
Jesus.
He became really famous when he got murdered.
Yeah.
But Conan did it without getting murdered.
Yeah.
So
are you saying you want to murder Conan? I'm reading between the lines, and I feel like that's what I'm hearing.
Want to and willing to are two different things. I don't want to murder Conan. I wouldn't choose to murder Conan, but willing, I don't know.
You have the motive.
For fame?
Yeah, the motive, probably the means.
For 5 minutes of fame? For having my own...
You can draw it out.
Yeah.
You can draw it out.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway,
listen, all I'm saying is consider it,
I have considered murdering Conan, and I'll talk about it with him very soon. Thank you for being here. Say hi to Michael for me.
I will.
I'm a big fan of his as well.
He's the best.
He may be getting a phone call to be a guest here. Not that I'm desperate for guests, but I am interested in artists. I'm starting
to smell a little desperation.
I'm interested in artists. Anyway, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Don't be alone.
Thank you, Aimee Mann, brilliant songwriter, singer, for being here. This has been Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. If you have any questions or comments, you can write dbawjaykogen@gmail.com, and you can send in your questions, and we'll or comments, and I will read your comments, and I may read your question on the air. In the meantime, I assume that you're exercising or driving because you're listening to a podcast. What else is there? Why else does anyone do that? Be careful. Be careful on the road. Be careful on the exercycle. Be careful with yourselves, and we will see you next time.